and that was not included. You made tests, right?
Mm-hmm. That's a little text.
The text?
Yeah. I'll read off you. I don't get my discuss on this right now.
This is one that didn't come out too well, but I guess test came out okay. Test didn't come out well.
Where's yours? You have
I
yours?
have one, yeah.
So this is it, or we have somebody else here?
This is it for today.
No Shmuels today?
No Shmuel.
No Shmuel Al, no Shmuel Beis? Are we in the middle of the page, Roy Zatzura, the line Roy Zatzura?
Yeah.
Okay. So, on page test, it's almost exactly in the middle of the page, maybe a line above the middle. The line begins with the word Roya.
Roy Zatzura.
Roy Zatzura. The general overall discussion, specific at this particular moment, even though that is not the beginning, but right now we're into understanding the difference between Zeh and Koi.
Back is that in Koi now?
Because we have never graduated.
So it was over the conversation about Panim.
Ponim Manocha B'Yochid.
Does this work within the paradox of Koi and Zeh?
Koi and Zeh. Right. So we had the Misholim, now we're in the Nimshol. Okay, we'll go straight into this, and then as we're going through, we're going to further elaborate. Okay, at the end of that line, Ve'al derech zeh hu b'nimshol. Ve'al derech zeh hu b'nimshol. The similar Inyan is in the Nimshol. The similar Inyan refers to a phenomenon. That sometimes we have where a higher madrege has only the quality of koi, and the lower madrege has the quality of zeh. The principle of koi and zeh is, koi means chov hey, koi, thusly. Zeh means this.
They're not Zion Aleph.
Zion hey. No, Zion Aleph is Rosh Hashanah. Zion Aleph is not the word. It's zeh, Zion hey. This. And there is a very great significance in the concept of zeh. because zeh means that there is a reality that you can point to, meaning that you know something or something represents not just a functionality, but a reality itself. That's what zeh. This is it. And this we discussed in the various Masholim and so forth, and now we're coming back to the Indian, the way it is Lamaila. Again, we will digest it again and bring it back to the fore. So the Nimshal, likewise, will understand that there is Koy and Zeh, and it's not necessarily that Zeh is on a higher madrig and Koy on a lower madrig. It could be the reverse. And here's where we have this case. The Bechina Zoh, this is not Zeh, this is Zoh. Bechina Zoh, this is referring to the Midos of Atzilus. Zoh means the Rampin. The Midos, starting from Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, and so forth. Shuholamato Mibino. Zoh, which is below Bino. Again, I'll come back in a moment. Hu b'chinas ponim beponim. Zoh has the element, the aspect of ponim beponim, face to face. Hainu, which means that there is b'chinas gilui ho'etzem, that there is an aspect of gilui ho'etzem, of an expression of the etzem. Etzem means the reality itself. Ubina, and then on the other hand, Bina, which is Seichel. Sholamayla Mizo, which is really above Zo, higher than Zo. Hu b'chinas ocher b'yocher. There the relationship is an external relationship, ocher b'yocher. So, let us, so to speak, rejuvenate our understanding of this. Bina is Seichel. In Seichel itself, Seichel means intelligence in general. In Seichel itself there is Chochmah and Bina. And we have to clearly distinguish between Chochmah and Bina. Right now we are talking about Bina. Bina is the logical aspect of Seichel. What is the logical aspect of Seichel? The logical aspect of Seichel is you know something through as a result of a logical process. Since you know it only through a logical process, you don't know the thing directly. You have proof, logical proof that this is what it is. Because if you knew the thing directly, you wouldn't need the logical process, the logical proof. You understand that, right? The logical process
as humans perceive it, or as like from human perspective, or the godly perspective in this case?
very simple. Human perception. This is true very simple. This weighs a pound. This weighs a pound and a half. So how much do they weigh together?
2 pounds and a half.
Come on, huh?
2 pounds and a half.
Together, can they weigh 2.5?
2.5. What?
And the two separate items that are weighing together in a sense.
Don't be too smart. How much do they weigh together? If this weighs a pound, and this weighs a pound and a half. 2.5. So, without weighing them on the same scale together, you figure out that together they would weigh 2.5. Okay? When are you employing this logic? When you're not weighing them directly on the same scale at the same time. But if you had weighed them on the scale at the same time, would you say that they weigh 2.5 pounds. How do I know? Because this one weighs a pound and this one weighs 1.5 pounds. It would be illogical to say that, right? Because you know directly how much they weigh.
Is this fact that 1 plus 1 is not 2 ones, but is 2?
No, there's nothing to do with that. Please, I'm saying you're just being too smart. Take it easy. Do you understand? This is very simple. I'm talking about a very simple thing. I'm just illustrating the concept of a logical process. A logical process is employed only when you don't know the reality directly. Okay? And this is an example of a simplistic logical process. All right? So, Bina could be much more complex, could be extremely complex. You can figure out with Bina very complex, the hidden things. But they're all through some kind of a logical proof, and therefore this is called Oche B'Oche. You know it from an external perspective. You don't know it directly. Indirectly, you know what this is. This is Bina. This is Seichel. This is generally speaking the Seichel, except for Chochmah, which is, as we're going to see. Okay. So Seichel does not relate a person to a concept directly. It tells you about it, but it doesn't connect him directly to it. I'll give you an example. If somebody were to, I use this example many times here. If somebody were to describe to you what the Niagara Falls look like, there's a huge waterfall, it's whatever, 200 feet tall, I don't know exactly how much, and it runs through, whatever it is, 5 million gallons of water every hour. And it makes a tremendous noise. And it looks this way. Okay? So he gives you all the details what it looks like. This is the description of it. Would you still be interested to go and see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Why? I gave you the full description.
Because being there and hearing is a whole seeing and hearing is a whole different
Whole different thing. Why? Because when I'm describing it, I can only describe to you an external view of it, not the real thing. The real thing I cannot give you in description. This is Bina. And therefore, Bina does not really connect you to the thing directly, and you do not have the actual feel for the thing. Zoh is a midas, chesed, ahava, yira, and all that. When you have a sense of a feel for something, even though this is a much lower level, but the feel can only come if you have a direct contact. Understand? Feel cannot come. You cannot feel, like I said before, you cannot feel the sense of it and the effect of it if you do not have a direct contact, a direct effect of it. Okay? So here we have this principle. Bina is Seichel, and Bina is much superior to Zoh, to Midas. Why is it much superior to Midas? This we already discussed also. Superiority and inferiority in this context means something that is relating to the truth of it, the objective truth. That's called a higher. That's a superior thing. Something that is very subjective, that is only due to my personal experience, that's on a lower level. If you eat something because it tastes good, compare that to eating something because your seichel tells you it's healthy and you better eat it. Which is a higher level? The second thing, right? When you're eating because it's healthy, not because it's tasty.
Higher in the logical sense?
No, higher in the human sense, in the sense of how much soul power is there, right? Do you understand that? A person who eats because it's healthy, a person who eats because it's tasty, who would you say is on a higher level?
The second person.
Say again?
The second person.
The second person, which is the second person?
The healthy person.
He's the first person in my example. You see, you lose the logical trend over here. Again, a person who eats because it's healthy versus a person who eats because it's tasty. Which one of these two people would you consider on a higher level?
The healthy person.
Right. And he is the first in my example. I'm not saying that he should be the first, but I should say the first and the second, you confuse me. Okay? So, right, the one who eats because it's healthy, we consider him on a higher level. Why? Because,
Objective.
Because he's objective, because he's doing, because it's true, not because it's right, not because I like it. That's on the lower level, not on a higher level. Okay? So Bina is by definition a higher level than Midas. Because Midas is by definition subjective. I like it. It may be a good thing that you like this. It's wonderful that you like this, because it's a good thing and it's worthy to be liked. But the whole experience of liking is on a lower level than saying, this is a good thing, this is true, this is right. That's a much higher level.
And why the liking is on.
Oh, so now we come to this point. So even though liking is on a lower level than projecting its value, and yet projecting its value is called ocher be'ocher, and liking is ponim be'ponim. Because you cannot like something unless you have a direct connect to it. What does it look like? What does it taste like? This is a direct connection. Right? The health, you can take an apple and grind it down to powder and it doesn't look nice at all, but it's in the same health. Does anybody like to take vitamin pills? And you say, I love them. Nobody loves vitamin pills. You don't like their looks, you don't like their taste.
You need it though, isn't that?
But you need it.
Necessary for you to live.
Well, I don't know about that, but Seichel tells you Seichel that you should, the doctor says you should take it, so you take it. Okay? But this is not ponim be'ponim, this is ocher be'ocher. You know that it's right, but you don't have a direct connect to it. Whereas if you eat an apple that's tasty and looks nice, you have a direct, you eat it and you have a direct appreciation of it. This is ponim be'ponim.
But it's weird that something that is so objective and absolute should be less impacting to a person than something that is not.
That's right. But That's exactly what we're pointing out. Ponim b'ponim and ocher b'ocher are not necessarily correlating to higher and lower, directly correlating. The truth is that this phenomenon is something that we experience all the time. You look at the table, say, oh, this looks like a good solid table. Not until you try it and you see it's a heavy table. It's not just a flimsy little thing. By looking at it, you couldn't tell if it's flimsy or it's steel-based table. When you try it, then you know, oh, wait a second, this is not. You can't really play with this guy, right? So, touch and actually trying is at a very low level compared to sight. We always, celebrate the phenomenon of sight. But this is ocher b'ocher, and this is ponim b'ponim. Okay. Elo, except. Okay, so we presented that principle. Elo, except that even though Bino is higher than Zo, is b'bchinas ocher b'yocher, except shehu b'bchinas b'china elyoina yoser. It is at a higher bechina. This is not going to be easy to express, and I'd like you to pay attention. And if you don't understand, of course, you'll stop me. The bechina elyoina yoser means that it's at a higher stance, a higher approach. It's a higher overall phenomenon. Hainu, and what is its higher? What does it mean? It is a higher. Hainu bebechinas ho'er olyin. Bina applies to the bechina, to the higher oir. Shemeir bechochmo bebechinas gilui hamahus. The higher oir that shines in chochmo in a gilui hamahus manner. Let's go over this line again. Bino is at a higher level, but it is b'bchinas ocher b'yocher. Elo except, shu b'bchino elyoina yeser. Even though it is ocher b'yocher, but it is in a higher phenomenon. B'bchino elyoina. What does it mean it's in a high phenomenon? A high phenomenon means it actually relates to a higher aspect. The motion that we had, we said objective and subjective. The motion that we had, is simply talking about the person himself. But in the person, an objective recognition, seichel, and a subjective recognition, objective is a higher experience than a subjective. But here the Rebbe is pointing out it's not just from the perspective of the person who is experiencing it, but it is higher from the perspective of what he is relating to, what he is actually talking about, what he is actually touching. Before we go into this, I'm going to go off a little bit and discuss the general phenomenon of higher and lower. And here we have kind of a paradoxical statement that neithers are higher than Seichel, or neithers have an element that is superior to Seichel, which is a phenomenal thing. And then in our moshel, we said we have touch and we have sight. How many times did you hear from me that sight is a phenomenal gift? It's a godly gift. And here we say touch is superior to sight. What's going on over here? Rabbi, are you contradicting yourself? Rebbe, are you contradicting yourself? So here is the very fine point that the Rebbe is going to explain to us now. Okay, it's going to stop if it's not your home. There are two aspects in an object. I'd like you to understand it. The two distinct phenomena in an object. Say, for example, we have a table right here. Some noise here? That's what it always does. It teases you until you have no more patience, and then it stops. Okay? So we said, look, I'm looking at the table, and then I touch it. It's completely different knowledge. And yet, at the same time, we're always saying that seeing something is the greatest experience. So I'm saying that there are two distinct aspects in everything. I hope you'll understand this. And in this itself, I'm going to present you with a moshel. A good moshel is this clock. This clock is a clock. And wherever it will be a clock. It could be on the table, it could be on the wall, it could be in a closet, it could be in a store being sold. It's a clock. This is what the object is to itself. Then there's another phenomenon. The object belongs to the yeshiva, belongs to a human being, and it's on the wall that the human being put it there for human purposes. Not for the clock's sense. The clock doesn't care where it is. This is the human element in the clock. Which aspect is superior? The physical clock or the human element in it?
The human element.
Do you understand my question? Do you follow?
Superior in regards to like panim versus.
No. Superior in terms of a higher oil, of a higher meaning, of a higher significance.
Persons.
The persons. You have a car, like we talked about. You have a car. A car is a wonderful tool, and it has a lot of smarts. You know how it's being built, a lot of ingenuity. The bottom line is, it serves the human being. The human being should be able to go from place A to place B. Which is more of a higher quality, is of a greater significance. The engineering feat, and what feat means accomplishment, or the fact that it can transport a human being from one place to the other.
Transport.
The human element is infinitely superior. This is the real thing.
The human being?
The human element in it. Serves a human being. I mean, not because it's a human. When a person goes from place to place, there is the whole world, as we've mentioned many times. There should be a big world, but no human beings. There's no world. The human being is what makes the world. The fact that it serves human beings and a human element, it serves him. It can take him to school. It can take him to work, and whatever it is. This is tremendous. This is the real purpose of everything. This gives the whole car a value. It's worth it to build all these complicated machineries and factories, ultimately in order to provide the human being with that service. That's the bottom line. This is what gives the car its true value. Engineering feat, yeah, okay. This is all secondary in comparison to its ultimate service to the human being. You understand? These are two distinct aspects. Somebody would argue, well, come on, Rabbi, this is the real thing. This car took so much ingenuity to build and so much smarts and wisdom. Okay, so you use it. That's the external. That's the superior. That's the superficial aspect of it. The real thing is the car. What are we going to answer to him? This superficial aspect is infinitely superior to all the internal workings of it.
How is the human aspect superficial? That's the whole idea why it was built.
It's superficial. You look at a car, you say, oh, what is a car? 4 wheels and a cabin. What? 4 wheels and a cabin? What about the motor? What about the brakes? What about the gasoline? No, as far as I'm concerned, 4 wheels and a cabin. And it can move.
Then a child's car is also a car.
What?
Then a child's play car that he can drive in, the 3, press the pedal, that's also a car then.
No. That's not a car. That's a toy car. It's not a car for transportation. It's a toy car. The real car is that which serves the human being in the ultimate and the real sense. That's the real thing. That gives it real value. Why did God create the world? Because of the human being. So they have toy cars or real cars? Do you have the point? The human being represents the true value in the world. Anything human is infinitely superior to anything that, no matter how ingenious it is. No matter how ingenious it is. God forbid, there's an accident, or there was this 9/11 that the 2 twin towers were hit. I mean, it was a tragic thing. It was a criminal thing and all that. People went in to save a life. It was a terrible, terrible, dangerous thing. So, yes, what did they do? They destroyed these twin towers, which was a pride of the country, pride of the city. What is the greatest crime in it all? The 3,000 people that died there. That is the greatest crime. Of course, they destroyed billions of dollars of damage. How is it compared to 3,000 people that they killed? Doesn't compare. You understand that? Do we understand that clearly? This principle must be understood. It's not just because we are human beings. This is the reality. Why is a human being so much superior to everything else? because human being is the godly presence in the world. He has a real presence. This is the godly presence. As been mentioned many times, that when the world was created, the first 5.5 days, there was everything in the world except for the human being. At that point, the world had no value. Then God said, I'll make a human being. And he will rule everything. That's what he says. I'll make a human being and he will rule everything. He'll take everything over and he will put everything in order. Now the world is going to be a real world. Now the world will acquire a real presence, a value, a godly value. Because human being really represents a godly value, presence. Okay? Do we understand? There's much more to speak. I just wanted to. The godly value, this level of value, this level of appreciation is really almost exclusively within the reach of the seichel. Midas, you have to be a tremendous tzaddik to relate to that. Midas relate to the object. The seichel relates to that other level. You understand what I'm saying? Do I have you with me 100%? 100% because I have to go, nothing exactly? Okay. Do me a favor.
Seichel relates
Give me
to
one
what
more.
exactly?
Huh?
Seichel relates to what exactly, as opposed to the numbers?
Okay, I'll wait. With me?
Yeah, trying to follow.
If you don't, please stop me, okay? Because, thank you. How many of you remembers the locomotive? You never saw a locomotive with a steam engine. Ever see a steam engine?
You mean like a museum?
In a museum, and you never saw it work.
I mean, you moved like 3 feet or so, or 5 feet, just like for demonstration. Never like in full.
Okay. Now the steam engine was a really impressive thing. This was like the first thing that people built that moved. It's what's called the horseless carriage. How can anything move without a horse? I mean, it moves a bit. There's no horse pulling it. Where's the horse? There has to be a little horse there. Okay? It was a miracle. And that locomotive was huge. And it was a steam engine because it carried an enormous amount of water. Had a big, big tank of water. And it had a lot of wood. And then the wood would be used to make fire. And the fire used to boil up the water and produce steam. And the steam, as steam expands, it would press against gears, and that would cause the locomotive to move. Can you imagine steam moving a train? It's quite a feat. Not in the pressure in there and all. Anyway, it used to make enormous noise. You know, used to release a little steam. And anyway, but it was very, very, very impressive. Very impressive. Now it was put in the museum. Why you put it in a museum? It's a wonderful engine. It's a wonderful engine. Look at this. The answer is, it's obsolete. It's obsolete. Used to be, in every corner, there was a telephone, a payphone. It's a great invention, a phone. Right on the corner, you go over, you put in a dime, and you dial up your number and you talk to people, and then 10 people are waiting in line to get there, pushing you. Now they got the little cell phones in your pocket. Why you do away with those phones? This was an impressive box. It's obsolete. What makes it obsolete? It's still a working engine. It's still, the ingenuity is still there. It's useless to the human being. And if it's useless to the human being, then it has no value. It has a historical value, but it has no value. It's a piece of steel. They take all of these locomotives and they melt them down to steel. And they use the steel to whatever else, whatever next generation. Now, you stand in front of this locomotive and you see and you're impressed at how it works. You say, don't melt it down. What are you doing? Come on, it's beautiful machinery. Your emotion would say, don't melt it down. What will the seichel say? Melt it down, it's nothing. In other words, this concept is an intangible element. This is a concept that speaks about true value. Not tangible value, but true value. It's intangible. Human value. How can you say there's a whole world of animals? Well, all kinds of animals. You know, there are species, thousands of species. And some people are foolish enough to say these species have seichel, they really are smart, and they're animals. And then there are birds, thousands of kind of birds. Then there are fish and fowl. Then there are trees. And everything in the seas, in the high seas, in the oceans, now it's a tremendous world. You say it's nothing because there's no human being. You understand? Who will say that it's nothing? The emotion or the seichel? Only the seichel. Only the seichel can see it. Why? Because the seichel relates to the true value. Not to the tangible thing, but my experiences. The emotion does not. In order the emotion to come and follow the seichel, we have to have a lot of hard work to impress upon it. You know, to have Abba for Hashem, you have to work very hard. And after all that, we fail. Because I don't feel it. A piece of good tasty cake, maybe. But this, I don't feel it. Right? This is the difference between Bina and Zohar, between Midas and Seichel. Midas may be relating to the real thing indirectly, but what are they relating to? To the object itself, to the clock. What is Midas impressed about? The clock. Oh, it's a beautiful clock. Oh, wow. What is the seichel impressed? Can tell me time. Midas don't care about time. Seichel takes about time. And it's put in the right place because so that it's humanly accessible. It's right there. I'm sitting here. I don't have to know the time all the time. That's wonderful. Do you follow the point?
I have a question.
Huh?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
But it seems like the idea of like seeing it for the function is going to be for the human being.
You trying to say again?
To see the value of the function, how it serves a purpose for the human being. That's like limiting it in a way to a functional level. But for example, you say art. Somebody would say, I appreciate art. Not because I can have a service from it, not because it's going to give me something, but because it has a value. Isn't that something also like higher in Seichel?
Of course. I'm not saying just the function of it. I didn't say the function, I said the human.
How do you separate?
What?
I thought we were talking somehow about the
No,
function, like-
in a car, it's a functional element. In art, there is a human message in it. It's too different. It's not.
I understand.
That wasn't the point.
Yes.
So here we have, even in our own experience, this is what we say all the time, that sight is superior to any other faculty, to any other sense. Why? Listen to this. When you come into this room and you see, what can you touch? You can touch a table. Oh, it's a table. Oh, it's a bench. Oh, it's a wall. What do you see? What do you see? Not a table, not a bench. You see a bismedrish. An intangible thing completely. What you see is a much higher aspect. A human or even a godly phenomenon. That's what you see. You can't touch that.
You can't touch that.
We can't touch that.
Well, it's greater than just a bunch of tables, books, and a microphone.
Yeah, of course it's great.
Well, the specifics only tell you, well, there are books, there's tables, there's microphones, but to understand base medrash, you have to actually see base medrash and understand the...
That's a seichel thing. This is the point, that the seichel relates to a higher, not that seichel is higher, per se, on the person, but it relates to a higher element.
And seichel is like seeing in this context.
Seeing is comparable to seichel, we always say. Seeing and hearing. Hearing is like midas, like touch, and seeing is like seichel. Seeing, you don't touch it. It's intangible. What you see is intangible.
The concept.
It's a reality that's on a different level. It's not an intangible level. So just as we have identified these two distinct levels on the human level, the physical and the human, the tangible and the human, there is on a much, much infinitely higher level, which is also in a similar thing. There is the object, the worldly thing, and the godly thing. In everything there's the godly element and there's the worldly element. The midas, they relate more to the worldly element. The seichel relates to the godly element. Even though seichel is ocher b'yocher. Now it doesn't really touch it. But what it relates to is a much superior thing. This is what the Rebbe says. The bina is lower than midas, than zah. But it relates to a higher oyer. And the Rebbe is going to explain to us which is the higher, the oyer ha-chochma, which we're going to have to leave till next year.
Wow.
Bina is actually lower, but it relates to something higher.
Say again?
This is
Bina
about
is
budgets.
actually lower than Midas, but it relates
No,
to
no, no.
something
Bina,
higher.
no, no. It's higher than Midas.
Ah.
And it's higher than Midas because it relates to a higher. That's what the point is.
You could also say that precisely because it's higher is less of an experience. Because usually you experience something when it's speaking like lower, like it's at your pace.
Well, the question is which comes first, right? The egg or the chicken? They're related things. But the point that we have to understand, to give it further analysis is not the time now. Right now we're trying to understand the words that the Rebbe is saying. That Bina is higher. Why does it mean higher? Because it relates to a higher oyer. And this is what we set out and we try to explain. Do you understand? This is an enormous and a great principle in life. There are all kinds of things that are enticing to people. Pleasant. This is what taibas are all about. Taibas I enjoy it. But they're devoid of the human element. So they're nothing.
And that's how a person can do a taiva that's absolutely horrible for him in many higher ways. Because there's no human element. There's just...
No human element. Really, we have to seek the godly element, but at least the human element. It could be destructive to the human element. All right, this will be it for today. Baruch Hashem, we had a shir.
Rabbi, do you drive pots